going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review, and this is our show where we review the Magic stories, and sometimes articles. And after this week, we will stop for a while, because there won't be more things to review for a while. But anyway, this time we are here for a Dominaria United related article, or Vorthos type article, entitled The Legends You'll Find in Dominaria United by Roy Graham. I mean, my quick review at the top of this one is, this is an article, not a story. So, I actually think it's rather important for people to read this, only because there are many people here that we, as folks who were not involved in reading past Dominarian novels, right? We read 2018's Dominaria stories, but the novels prior to the 2018 set that were set on Dominaria, we were not familiar with. So many of these legends that were from back then, as well as legends that were created just for this set, or, you know, and then obviously going forward, we had no knowledge of. And this gives you even just a taste of information on them. So if that is something that interests you, at least for me, a lot of these cards that we've seen over the course of this set, drafting, playing in standard, whatever the case may be, have a little bit more meaning now because of it. So I think it's worth it for people to read. Also, that was the worst quick review ever, and I apologize.
I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to say it. Because I'm usually the one who, says a whole thing.
I realized it about halfway through and decided to commit regardless. Just
always
saying.
Commit. No, yeah, my quick review is, like you said, it's not a story. So there's no, analysis piece that needs to be added to this.
Yeah.
But it is important for people who need a refresher on these characters, or for people who don't know these characters at all, or for people who just want, a deeper dive into some of these characters, if they just know, sort of baseline stuff or, surface information about these characters. And they are the most important characters in Dominaria United, so you need to know them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's literally every legend that you'll find in the main set as well as the Commander release. And for folks who are big Commander players, let me know maybe in the comments down below. I would, first of all, any opinions that you have. But I would love to hear from you in the comments down below if that's something that you want to know. Is it oh crap, cool, I can find out more about these characters now because they're not present in the stories at all. I mean, Jared and Dahada are, right, to a degree, but still. So yeah, I'm curious what people have to say about that, or what they think of that. But that's our quick reviews. They're not that quick, but we'll get onto the full review in just a moment. But if you have not gotten a chance to read this article for yourself and don't want, I mean, we're gonna, I guess, be spoiling it. It's not, we're just gonna be talking about it, and we're not gonna be giving it as in-depth of a discussion as Roy did in his article here. So if you want to go read this article for yourself, trust me, I mean, you could just Google it, I suppose, but it's a lot harder to find if you're just searching through their website. So we've tried to remove as many barriers as possible, as we tend to do. And so the top link in the description down below will take you to this article for yourself, because it is not on the story tab. Again, it's not a story, so I don't fully blame them, but it is pretty Vorthos related in my opinion, our opinion. That's why we're doing it for our review show, where we discuss #Vorthos Pride. But, yeah, we'll get to that later. But, so, I don't know. I think it would be appropriate to have it as part of your story tab, or story section for Dominaria United. That's just us.
Or at the very least, a little bit on the story page, referring to it and providing a link to it where it could take you directly there. because it'll, you know, it can give like a little synopsis or like a little, you know, blurb about like, hey, you might want to read this too, here's why, and then the link, and then if you decide to, you can just click the link, and if you don't decide to, you can just move on.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I think they spoiled us, or at least ruined it for themselves with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, because they showed that you can put tabs in that section, and then click between the tabs. So you could look at the saga stories, you could look at the main stories, you could look at the side stories, and like, that it was more than just main or side, right? And so the fact that they showed, I mean, I guess it would be pretty obvious even if you just had the two, that you could just add a third, because, you know, programming. But the fact that they were able to add a bunch, because they had the manga in there as well, like, it's not that hard. Just have a Planeswalker's Guide, spoilers for our last video, you should go check it out. Or last JaAR, I should say. And a section for your Legends article. Like, why is that not something that's also in your story tab? It can be in two places. I mean, again, I don't work for the company, so maybe...
Especially if you want more people to see it.
Yeah.
It could be in more than one place.
Right, because the story tab is very prominent on Magic's website, whereas the feature article section... Once it's not a feature anymore, like if people don't go there every day to see what the newest articles are, it's not going to get seen anymore.
Right.
So...
They don't care because they don't understand what makes sense when it comes to Vorthos stuff. They just don't.
Anyway, hey, really quick before we actually continue on with this full review, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you're liking the stuff that we're putting out, please don't hesitate. We would really appreciate if you would subscribe and ring that bell so that you'll get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, including more JaARs when it is pertinent to have JaARs come out, mainly when the Brothers War story begins to release, when that set comes out next month at this point. And we also have other channels, links down in the description box below under the link to this article. We have Video Games for All and Gluten Free for All. Video Games for All, 3 new videos a week, 3 different series, and Gluten Free for All, 1 new video a month over there.
This month we're going to have 2 videos because I didn't put one out for September, unfortunately.
We got a little busy, but
yeah,
it happens.
sidetracked.
Yeah.
So I, you know, missed the ball. What's the saying I'm thinking of here? I don't know.
Missed the boat?
Missed the boat, maybe? I don't know. I missed something.
Yes.
So this month there will be 2. So please check those out.
Definitely. And again, going there, don't forget to sub and ring the bells there also. And we go live on this channel right here every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're a fan of Magic the Gathering, we play MTG Arena. We play Limited almost exclusively every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Fridays we play whatever video game we happen to be playing at the time, and because it is officially Spooky Month, it's more official that we are playing our Spooky Month playthrough, but we've been doing it for a little while now on Fridays, but we will be continuing our playthrough this Friday of Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem for the GameCube. So we would love it if you would join us. It's been an absolute blast playing through that game. Genuinely one of my favorites of all time. Games in general, not just horror games, but games, period.
It's cool.
I'm glad you're liking it, truly. And if you're unaware of how Video Games for All works, the channel, I take Amy through video games that she has never experienced before, aka all of them.
Yeah, right.
So.
Well, aka I have not experienced video games really before, but that doesn't mean we're going through every video game.
I mean, it depends on how long this channel's out for, I suppose.
I don't think so. Like, there's never a moment where we would catch up with that.
Fair. Totally fair. But
that's a lot more than 3 videos a week.
Yeah. Yep. But regardless, we hope you can go check those things out and that you enjoy. Thank you for any and all support that you are willing to give. We truly, for this series especially, want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, but commenting on videos helps a lot, and then likes and shares go a very long way, so please don't forget that as well. Now, onto the actual full review itself, we kind of got into it a little bit because it kind of bled out of our quick review, which was not that quick, which is fine. It talked about every single legend in alphabetical order, and I started by writing notes for each one, and then I was like, that's silly. I'm not gonna talk about
many.
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about each one. There were a lot of them, and honestly, the article, despite the fact that there's a lot of artwork because it shows the cards in large scale, right. So it's a lot of scrolling for that. But there's also a fair amount of reading, which is nice. I mean, reading is good for you, and a nice thing. And no, I mean it's important. I think it's a good thing that reading these short stories, etc. I think that I can understand and respect people's time, and that they may not have a lot of it. So please don't misunderstand, and please don't be offended if this refers to you. But I think it cheapens it a bit when folks go online just to find the summaries of the stories, as opposed to taking the time to actually read them. I feel like if you care about them, hopefully you can find the time to read them, because it's not even that you would have to go to YouTube, for example, to watch a summary video of the story because you couldn't get it anywhere else. Because if you have access to YouTube, you have access to the internet, which means you have access to the stories. So again, I'm trying to be appropriate and polite here, and not saying people who do it are blah blah blah. That's not the case. I would hope that people would be able to take the time to appreciate a good piece of art.
Right.
Like these short stories, because they are short stories. And while people's time is very precious, if it is something that you're interested in, I would hope that people are able to make time for it. And obviously, if you're here, I think you, watching this video, I assume you have some excess time available to you, no matter how or when you consume our content. And obviously, thank you for...
Our content is long.
Yes. Some of us like to talk a lot.
Yeah, well, because we read the stories and then we provide analysis, and then we ask for your analysis back in the comments. And that's something that you can't do from reading a summary of a story.
Yeah.
That's something that you do when you just care about knowing enough about the set that you're playing with, as opposed to caring about, like you said, the art aspect of it, or like I said, the analysis aspect of it.
Sure.
So,
yeah. So I like I said, I started writing down all of them. We are really only going to talk about the ones that kind of stood out to us for any particular reason. If there is a person that we do not mention that you want to discuss, comments down below.
So.
Literally anything. And if there was someone that we talked about that you want to be heard on, that's what it's for.
Please.
Leave it in the comments. We would love to hear from you. So the first one that I wanted to talk about, it's so funny. There's a lot of cards in this set, unfortunately, that have no business being in the set in terms of synergies within the set.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? That there are cards that exist that are like Rundveld, right? I think that's his name, the goblin in the armor, the mono red card in the armor, that we didn't talk about today, by the way, but or it wasn't in the article, but it talks about however many goblins you have, whether there are 5 goblins in the set total. Splatter Goblin is one of them. Rulik Mons is another. Squee is another. There aren't that many goblins in the set to really make it worth your while. And so that synergy doesn't really exist. There's the soldier one in white, which I think is the closest you'll get. The mono white Valiant Veteran, I think is its name. That's the closest one you're going to get to a worthwhile Tribal Matters card in this set, despite the fact that there are a fair number of Tribal Matters legends in the set. And one of them is Aster, Bearer of Blades. And it's not really tribal. I mean, it's aura and equipment tribal. So it's not like a tribe. But it's aura and equipment matters card. Even though there are very few auras and equipment, that matter at all in this set. But anyway, the awesome thing about Aster, Bearer of Blades is, that I was unaware of, Aster is Radha's grandfather.
Which is awesome.
Very awesome. And he was believed to have been dead, but there were rumors that his tomb was empty.
Oh, shit.
Which it was, because he is, and
I
was...
forgot that part.
He was on the Golden Argosy. So, if he's... First of all, can I just say, if he was on the Golden Argosy, right, and that's how he's depicted in his card, he's just sitting on the deck of the Golden Argosy, if that's the case, Radha rode on the Golden Argosy. Where's that story? Give me that story. I want it. I want to know. You know, it's like I use Marvel references because I love Marvel Comics, and I've enjoyed the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well, so I apologize if you're tired of hearing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it reminds me of the end of Endgame. I guess spoilers, but it's been out for a while. But it reminds me of the end of Endgame, where Cap is traveling back to deliver all the stones, and when you finally realize that to deliver the Soul Stone, he's got to go see Red Skull, it's like, why don't I get to see that? Right. I want to see what that looks like, you know? Meanwhile, like all the other trips, like hopefully he would just go back and see the Ancient One and give her the stone back and blah, 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 like for all the places where they took the stones from. But that one in particular, it just reminds me of this, where it's like, you mean Radha gets to meet her own grandfather who everyone assumed was dead, and the dude looks like he's in his 20s because that's where he was, like, put into stasis, basically? Yeah. Like, why can't I see that story? I want to know what the hell happened there.
Right.
That's so cool. So, but again, I didn't know that until I read this article. So if I personally had not read this article, I wouldn't have known. Maybe that's the same for you as well. So, again, let us know in the comments. Did you know that about Aster? I know that there were some people talking about it when the set released, of like, oh wow, he is still alive, you know, something like that. So it is something that folks were aware of, but as someone who did not remember that was the name of Radha's grandfather, I was surprised. So I thought it was really cool. Then we get Bladewing, Deathless Tyrant, the undead dragon that's flying around, right? Bladewing is like the last name of the dragons. So this is Rorik's Bladewing, who is now undead. And it talks about the fact that he's been causing trouble. His like undead form has been flying around and giving people grief. And that his offspring in Varix and Karox, the term they used are his descendants. So his descendants, Varix and Karox, have vowed to take him down. That's pretty cool. We'll hear about more dragons later on, but that's pretty cool that this undead Rorik's Bladewing is flying around and bothering people, and now his descendants are the ones who are like, all right, we got to deal with this now. You know, let's put this to a stop, because this article is insinuating that Rorik's is a problem to the plane, is being problematic. Which, it's so funny because some of these discussions of legends that are not Phyrexians are still saying like, hey, they could cause a lot of problems for Dominaria, and it's like planting the seed for when we come back again, hopefully a while from now. Yeah, but after the Phyrexian,
a lot.
Yeah. But after the Phyrexian threat has been dispatched, to return to Dominaria, there are still seemingly plenty of story threads to pull on to be able to get more out of that story. So, again, I think that's another interesting one in Bladewing.
I mean, for Brothers War, we're still going to be on Dominaria. And
yeah, just
for the, like, Phyrexian thing afterwards, we're still going to be on Dominaria. It's just going to be different stuff, you know?
Yes and no. So I assume Phyrexia all will be one, is going to be set on New Phyrexia. That's just my guess.
Okay.
And then March of the Machines seems to be everywhere, or at least maybe it's just on Phyrexia, but it's like all the people coming together onto Phyrexia to do the fighting and stuff.
I kind of forgot that, like, prior to this, there was a lot of, like, don't forget the Phyrexians on other planes other than Dominaria, because obviously here on this plane, it's a big deal.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas it was, like, kind of, you know, like, stealthy on the other planes.
Right, because they kind of just showed up to take one thing and then leave.
Right.
Or complete one person and then leave. Whereas on Dominaria, Shieldred had a lot more plans.
Right.
So, yeah,
but,
that's a good point.
the thing about being Phyrexian, I guess, is, like, you can just, like, complete one person and then, like, make them continue to complete people, right?
I actually don't know how that works. I don't know if sleeper agents can actually complete people, or if you need to, like, be a baseline Phyrexian for that. It is unclear, and honestly, from what we have talked about in the reviews that we have done for Dominaria United, I feel like they don't know. And by they, I mean the story writers. They're very inconsistent with how sleeper agents work and things like that, so I don't know, and I wouldn't even try to venture a guess. But if you have one, let us know.
Yeah.
Bortuk Bone Rattle, the Golgari card, the black-green troll shaman. I liked this little story snippet that we got for Bortuk Bone Rattle. The concept that this, like, for us looking at the card, or I guess I should say for me looking at the card, because Amy, you like the guy or you don't like the guy?
I do.
Amy tends to like things that I would think are like gross creatures or things that are, I guess, more stereotypically looked at as like bad guys or evil or whatever you want to call it.
Ugly creatures.
But Amy loves them. Yes, literally the horrors are the ones that you like. Like most often, you'll look at something and be like, "Oh, look at how cute it is!" And like, it's a horror.
And I'm like, "No, I just want to tickle it."
Hence the pest artwork that we have going on over there. But anyway, this troll shaman that when I look at it, I think like, oh, you know, it's a troll in a swamp raising beings from the dead. Yeah. Like this is not someone that you would look at and be like, oh, that person probably pretty cool. Like, you know, you could say that they're like bad.
I would think is pretty cool.
I don't know. I mean, like again, I guess I'm a wrestling fan too, so you know, sometimes it's cool to root for the bad guy, but then again, you're rooting for the bad guy. Like you're aware that you're rooting for the bad guy. Here, listening to Bortuk Bone Rattle's story, like it's a troll necromancer who is one of the last of their kind, and they are hoping someday to be able to use their necromancy to bring back not undead versions of their fallen brethren.
Right.
That's amazing. What an awesome little story beat for, again, a stereotypically, like, gross, evil character that gets to have, like, a very heartwarming aspect to their story. I thought that was really cool to read. Because, again, you know, check your assumptions at the door, right? You know, again, I looked at that and I was like, oh, you know, this is this troll, and now I can look at that creature card differently from now on, at least in terms of the story of it, right? It doesn't change the playability or lack thereof, but it changes the story that I think of when I look at that character, or that the headcanon that I had created versus now knowing what that character is about.
Right, exactly.
Which I think is really cool. I like that.
And I don't really love the art for that card. But the stained glass art for that card, we both love.
It's very good. That long nose
so cool. Pointed
straight down like that, so good.
It's like Chin Cataxius' chin.
We hear a bit about braids, and I just wanted to talk about braids because we both had a reaction to the fact that Braids, it mentions that Braids was brought back from being eternally torn apart in dementia space.
Which sounds like the worst hell. Just the worst hell. Right?
Amazing. So cool.
Yeah.
And now she's, with the Weatherlight crew, not on the Weatherlight. Then we have Kadric, this dwarf from the Commander set. And again, I'm not familiar with any of these characters, so if Kadric has existed previously, please let me know. But if not, Kadric was made as a commander card, and it mentions that he hears noises in the mountain or whatever, and believes that it is what he seeks, which is Dominaria's song under the Karpluzan Mountains. That's fascinating to me, because if that story exists, or if that blurb exists, it leads me to believe that there's some aspect of truth to it, as opposed to just, nah, he just lost his mind. You know what I mean? Like, I don't imagine that they would go out of their way to print a card for a character where the answer is, no, he's just crazy. You know what I mean? So I think that's fascinating and very interesting to me. I thought it was interesting the way that they described Dihada, the Planeswalker, from the Commander set as well, but discussed in the Education of Ulf story. We hear a bit about Dihada, the old Planeswalker, because it says that some people say that she is still alive. Then it specifies and says others say that she is pulling the strings in politics on Dominaria. And it's like, wouldn't you say others say whatever? Wouldn't it be closer to like the opposite of what you originally said the first people said? Maybe I'm being nitpicky. I thought it was a weird way to put that, where it was like, others say this. Like, okay, sure. But still, she is around. Sol Kanar is still around. She's still around. Jared is still around. So like, it was interesting to see, right? Because these were listed in alphabetical order, you still got to see some like collections of people whose stories intertwined with one another,
right?
And were relevant to one another, as opposed to others that were completely disjointed, right? Like Jared and Bortuk Bone Rattle will likely never meet, but I still think it's interesting that, like, Dihada, Gerard, there was another Carthalion as well, who I didn't write down, but there was another Carthalion, a Druid Carthalion, if I remember correctly. And Sol Kanar. And, like, all of their stories meld together in some capacity, even if it's just, like, one little thread, one little aspect of one story goes with another aspect of another. Like, they all can be connected in one way or another. And there are other, like I said, kind of collections of people. And in fact, because this set is so heavily focused on New Argive, there are a lot of, rightfully so, there are a lot of legendary characters from New Argive. So you have like Baird and King Darien and Sten and the Captain of the Guard and like, Balmor, Battle Mage Captain, is also from New Argive. So, like, there's a lot of these characters that even just share a locale, even if they don't necessarily share story beats with one another. So, I thought that was interesting, too. Alas Ilkor, who we saw in Liliana's Homecoming story, and, she's a pretty good uncommon in the set as well.
Nah.
It mentions that she, unlike most, if not all, I would say most, of the other Phyrexian-based legendary characters that we saw in this list, most of them were completed. But not all of them, because Alas Ilkor just was like exploring and found a container of Phyrexian oil, touched it, became
And
part...
was like,
just went...
taking a bath.
Yeah, I was going to say went swimming around in it, drank it down, you know, and like you do when you find random...
This tastes good.
Yeah, like you do when you find random oil in a cave. Let's lick it. No. But
That reminds me of like those detective shows. Those like old school detective shows where the detective will like see a substance and then like lick it to determine what
Yeah.
it is. And
It's
it's
like-
like that is the like least safe thing.
yeah, they lick it.
Especially if it's like blood. Ugh.
Yeah. Then we had Lagomos. I thought Lagomos was interesting because with Braids returning, it was implying that Braids would be coming back to take over the Cabal. But Lagomos is the guy who was sitting there waiting for his chance to take over. And is like super cocky and sure of himself and like thinks he knows best about how to handle the Cabal. And then Braids shows back up and he's like, damn, I was so close, you know? I almost had it. And you can tell, based on how this was written, that, you know, he's now just going to sit back and wait for his opportunity, it seems. But all the while being like, oh, this sucks, I could do this better, this is terrible, I can't believe this crap, blah, blah, blah. You know, and like, kind of just being the, like, bitter jerk about it. That's all. You loved hearing about Moira.
Yeah. She was a commander character.
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
But she was just awesome. So I mean, that was like a kind of a card that I would probably like never see.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
And it was nice to have her in this article so that I could learn something about her and realize that she's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It talks about how she used to enslave spirits to herself,
Right.
or like to do her bidding, and then a spell of hers backfired and turned her into a spirit. And then she realized what it was like for spirits and vowed to make it so that no one could enslave spirits to their will ever again.
Or try. And she's not going to succeed at that,
Well,
you know,
Yeah.
overarchingly, but it's a goal that she will, you know,
Pursue.
constantly pursue. Yeah.
Well, and we hear later on in the article as well about Radadravik of Urborg. And Radadravik is basically Moira's foil and vice versa, because he wants to enslave spirits to himself, and she is trying to stop him from doing that. And so they are at odds with one another and are kind of rivals with one another. Speaking of rivals, we have Namada and Rith. Now, Namada, it said Namada the card name is Namada Primeval Warden. I always saw that was the name of it and never thought anything more about it. And yet, the Primevals are the dragons. And a warden, like at a prison, is someone who watches over someone in captivity. And so, Rith, awakened, right, is one of the primeval dragons that escaped containment, or at least was awakened and absconded. And Namada was supposed to be keeping watch, and now that Rith has gotten away, Namada is upset about that, and is raising other tree folk, because Namada is a Magnagoth tree folk, and is seemingly raising other tree folk to seek out Rith. So we hear about that interaction with those two, but also with Rith. It said that Rith awakened once Daragaz was resurrected, basically. And that Daragaz's resurrection is what awoke Rith. And that their existence as the primeval dragons, especially if all of them were to be reawakened or resurrected, that would also be some type of a threat to Dominaria. Now we know, based on the story that we read from Dominaria United, that Daragaz and the other dragons, so presumably Rith as well, but Daragaz and his dragons helped fight against the Phyrexians based on someone going and asking them, who I currently do not remember. Let me know in the comments if you do, who it was that went and asked for help. It might have been Karn, might have been a Johnny, I don't recall. But, so they were on the side of good temporarily at least,
Yeah.
you know? But I guess once that threat has passed, it's possible that it will become a problem again.
Yeah. Now, Rith is the tree folk?
No, that's Namada.
Namada. I did not love when they showed the art for Namada. I really didn't love it because they specifically said in this article that Namada is like thousands of feet tall.
Yeah.
Which, okay, really cool, right? But in the art on the card, there's like a tree standing next to Namada that's like significantly larger than it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the stained glass art was just like weird. It was kind of like hard to even see what it was.
Sure. Yeah, cool colors in that stained glass
Yeah.
art, but otherwise, yeah.
It was pretty, but you couldn't really tell what was going on there.
Yeah.
So the arts were meh, meh.
When we read about Najal, I was fascinated. Because, like, I haven't used Najal a lot in draft. Like, we've taken her a couple of times.
Yeah.
Also was unaware that she was female, so apologies if I ever referenced Najal and said he. But as we learned in this story. But it was so interesting. It said that Najal is so fast and prides herself on being fast and got into a race where she ran so fast that she basically planeswalked.
Yeah.
She, like, broke the barrier between dimensions and ended up in a desert somewhere.
Which is like, essentially, she like opened a wormhole with her own body and speed.
Which is
Like,
amazing.
How fucking awesome is that?
It's so cool.
That's what that is, right? She ran so much faster than time, essentially.
That it bent around her instead of her living within it.
Yeah, that it opened a wormhole and sent her somewhere else.
So cool.
Like, what the hell?
So cool. And then the last one that I wanted to talk about individually or specifically was Tori Dievenant, Fury Rider. We have joked in the past on our Monday streams, right, playing Arena, because we've used Tori quite a bit. But we've joked a lot that, like, what a weird fantasy name Tori is.
Right.
Like, we literally saw a friend of ours named Tori earlier today,
right, exactly.
while we're filming this. And yet, you know, now we're going to come home and read about Fantasy Tori, you know what I mean? Like, so obviously no offense to anyone named Tori, it's not about that. It's just not a typical fantasy name. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we just talked about Bortuk Bone Rattle, Braids, Kadric, Dihada, Alos Ilkor, Lagamos, Moira, Najal, Namada, Rith, and Tori. Like, anyway, that's not my point. My point is, odd fantasy name, but really cool disabled representation.
Yeah. You mean disability representation?
Well, representation for disabled individuals.
Okay.
Because it mentions that she, over time, lost the use of her legs. And with her warhorse and her special saddle, she can still be at the front line of all of these Fury rides and Fury riders. and
Which is so cool.
amazing, absolutely amazing.
And the thing is, I didn't know that about her until we read this article.
That was going to be my other point. Please keep going. I'll talk about it in a second.
Because we've seen the card. It's a woman riding a horse.
Yeah, I mean, she's got like metal legs, or like metal over her legs, but it absolutely could be read as armor.
Right.
Without this article, you wouldn't know.
Right.
And I did write that down. Too bad without this article, no one would know.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because that's really cool that you can have representation for that group of people. It has happened in the past in Magic, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen again, and that doesn't mean that when it does happen, like, you don't need to, like, put it on her as a badge or something, right? That's not the point. But where else are people supposed to find out this information for this card? Like, what percentage of Magic fans read this article?
Right, exactly.
What percentage of your fan base knows that about her that would want to see a disabled character?
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about how important representation is, but until your audience actually can recognize it as being representation, it isn't good for anything, right? We saw Winota when that card came out. That was visible that she was missing part of her leg.
Was it her leg or was it her arm?
No, it was her leg. Okay. Wasn't it?
I don't remember. But she was an amputee of some kind, which I thought it was her arm. I thought her arm was missing. Again, let us know in the comments. I don't exactly remember, but one of the two.
That's not the point.
Exactly.
The point is, it was easy to tell that representation existed with the Winota card.
Right. And so you didn't... Sorry, I was just going to say, so you didn't need it written down, basically.
Right. With this card, you don't have any clue.
Yeah.
Unless you are one of the people who read this article.
Yeah.
Boo.
Now, interesting to me, right? We talked about this last week, and in fact, let me go back in my notes to check here. We talked about the release of the stories themselves, and that the first story was released on August 10th and the last on August 18th, and this article was released September 1st. So about half a month after the final story was released, and after Ajani was officially revealed to be the sleeper agent, right? And the one to have been completed. But there were other characters who were completed. He was just the only planeswalker, right? So you had Aran, who was completed. You had Sten, who was completed. For a period of time, you had Squee, who was completed. Like, these were characters who were completed. Similar to what we discussed last week. So again, if you have not seen that episode, I encourage you to go look and check it out, because we want to hear, I truly want to hear your thoughts on these things. But it just seems odd to me in this story, again, or in this article, again, the things that are chosen to be discussed and not discussed. Because it seems like the things that you can't ignore in the art, Aran dripping with Phyrexian oil,
Right.
you talk about the fact that he was completed. Ajani, called Ajani's sleeper agent, showing the cables and the red eye and all that other stuff. You talk about Ajani being a Phyrexian or having been completed. Squee, you're vague about it. You're like, he feels like something is wrong among his tribe, but he doesn't quite know what it is, but he's gonna find out. It's like, we all know what it is. We read the story already. It came out half a month ago. They're all Phyrexians, except for the one, and him. So, why be cagey about that, but then blatantly reveal, oh yeah, but Aran is. You also don't say that Sten becomes one.
Right. they didn't like reference that at all
And like I said,
in this.
I understand that the actual reason is because they had to reveal those things because it was obvious in the art and or the card name. So that's the only reason why they reveal those things in the way that they do, because you can't show the card a Johnny Sleeper agent and not reference the fact that he's a goddamn sleeper agent.
Right.
You can't do it. And you can't do like Aran Benalia's Hope or whatever the hell whatever his name is. Nope, I didn't write it down. I wrote Aran Capuchin. So, but whatever. Aran Benalia's whatever. You can't talk about that card and show it without talking about the fact that he's been completed.
Okay, and it's pretty obvious.
Yes. But Squee?
He does still kind of look sexy, though.
Oh, yeah, sure. But Squee, you're even purposefully mysterious and vague about it.
Yeah.
You don't even mention that JaAR dies.
Yeah.
When you give the description of JaAR at the end.
Yeah, it was just so odd. It was like, what part of the timeline are you trying to hit here? Because it was kind of all over the place.
Well, and again, because this article references, like, do you want to read about this person? Here's all the stories that you can go to read about this person. Do you want to read about this person? Here's all the stories you can go to. So, I guess it's a way to try to get people to read your story, like you were talking about. But, like, is this really the way to do it? Like, you're talking about a Johnny Sleeper agent. That's the biggest reveal of the story. By far. Because you waited until after the last story came out where that was revealed to talk about it. Or to show anything about it. Like, so I don't fully get the rationale behind it. Like, I'm not as upset with this one as I am about the Planeswalker's Guide, because the Planeswalker's Guide just really frustrates me. It really does. About, like, who is it for, and when, and why? Like, but this one is just, I'm just perplexed, to be honest. Like, it's just like, why? I guess similar questions. Why be vague about it? Like, if people are going here to read about some characters that they will have no other way of finding out this information besides reading this article. But if people are taking the time to read this in-depth ass article, they will have read the stories already as well.
Right, exactly.
Like, there's what percentage of the people that read this article didn't read the stories or didn't, in some capacity, seek out information on what happened in the stories.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or you might have like a subset of people who were like, well, I'm not going to have time to read the stories, so I'm just going to read this article in the hopes that it will kind of fill in the blanks for me of the story beats that I'm not getting from the cards.
Because it was released on September 1st and the last story was released on August 18th. And it talks about the fact that the set doesn't come out until September 9th, right? So the full set releasing on September 9th. And it's like, okay, so is that why you're cagey? Because, again, you still have a Johnny that you talk about because you have to. But it seems like it's only because you have to. Because anything where the art for the card that you're showing, where it doesn't show that aspect, you don't reveal it. You don't talk about JaAR dying because it's not the Extinguish the Light art, it's Jaya Ballard's art for her Planeswalker card. You don't talk about Sten becoming completed, and you don't talk about Squee becoming completed or finding his entire tribe of goblins having been completed as well.
Is already completed.
Yeah. So I just ask, who is it for? Why be so cagey about it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Pick a spot on the timeline
yeah.
in the stories to go up to and stop at when you're talking about each character.
Yeah.
Like, go from, point A, which is like somewhere near the beginning of this person's story, right? And have point B be the same point on the timeline for each of these characters. Because the way they did it was kind of like all over the place.
And if your concern is, truly, if your concern is that you don't want to spoil your story for people, because for some reason the article that came out almost half a month after the story released in 8 days or 10 days, no, 10 stories in 8 days, that's what it is. Both those numbers I had in my head, but yeah. If you don't think for some reason that all of your fans would have the time to read all 10 of your stories within those 8 days.
And maybe you shouldn't release it that way.
We've talked about that a million times. That's not my point, but you're absolutely right. Then you can put a warning at the top of this article and say, please be aware, underneath here we'll likely have spoilers for the Magic, or the story for Dominaria United, so please go here and link to the story page or to the first story to begin reading the story for yourself before reading this article so that you're not spoiled. Like, that doesn't hurt.
Fabulous.
Right?
And it wouldn't be that difficult for them to do that, but they'd have to care, and they'd have to have the wherewithal and knowledge to be able to make that happen. And so seemingly they just don't.
Yeah, it's very strange. I'm super grateful that this article exists because we were up to date on the story before reading it,
right.
And we got to hear about characters and information about characters that we would literally have not found out any other way but by reading this article.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that one character that I really, really liked, Moira.
Yeah.
She was really cool. And like I said, she was a commander-only set card. So I probably never would have even seen that card, let alone known the information that they wrote in this article about her, because that's not present on the card. So yeah, it was really cool to be like, oh, she used to, essentially enslave dead people, and now she helps them to not be enslaved instead because she learned how terrible it was to be enslaved, right?
Which is great.
Yeah.
So great.
So now she, essentially, she's like a medium. She's a spirit as well, so not really, right? But she helps spirits cross over, and that's just really cool.
Yeah.
That there is a magic card of a character that does that, right?
Yeah, very, very unique concept, which I like a lot. So, hey everybody, that is going to be the end of this particular episode. I would love, as always, we would love, as always, to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Let us know what you think, because taking the time to hear about these characters, again, whether, for the Commander players out there who bought these cards and are going to play these decks and want to find out more about their backstories, that's really cool. And that's a really great way for you to join us as we show off our
#VorthosPride.
Now, as I said, it will probably be a little bit until you see us in this context, because it will probably be until Brothers War. So we'll see you then for that. But as I said, don't forget, 3 videos a week over on Video Games for All, 2 videos this month, but typically 1 video a month over on Gluten Free for All. And we stream every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on this channel, and we would love to see you there. We have had some amazing streams recently, but I mean, even, in the past as well. Just a really awesome group of people that come out and watch our stuff, comment, share, like I said, and join us in chat during our live streams. So we appreciate each and every one of you who chooses to do that. We appreciate you for being here for this video as well. Like I said,
especially if you leave comments or questions.
Exactly.
We want this to be a conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't just want to yell into the void and have nothing happen.
Exactly. So like I said, that's going to be the end. Thank you so much
we
for...
could open a wormhole in time and be transported to a desert.
Yes. I mean, I am definitely known for running very, 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 very fast.
You actually are pretty fast.
I used to be. I am much older now, and live a much more sedentary lifestyle.
That is true. But, yeah, I mean, back in the day.
Yes,
You
back
were
in the
pretty
day.
fast.
Thank you.
And that surprised some people because they saw you and they were like, oh, he's going to be slow. And then you were like, nah.
No. It's true. Sometimes people surprise you. It happens. But yeah, so we will see you when we see you, and let us know when we do see you that you've been looking forward to it. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they do with the Brothers War. It could absolutely be a cluster, but it could absolutely be full of fun Easter eggs, and they might change up the timeline a lot, which may not be great. Again, that could be a cluster. We will have to see, and I reserve judgment until that point, and we will be here with all of you to discuss that. So we hope that you will come back here and join us. Again, subscribing and ringing that bell. We'll make sure that you get a notification as soon as that video comes out, and we will try to get them out as soon as we can after the stories are released. But again, 10 stories in 8 days is really tough, but we are going to do our absolute best to give the stories the breathing room that they deserve, as well as giving ourselves some time to, get the stories out to all of you.
Nah, that doesn't happen.
Never. But, so stay tuned for that. We really appreciate you all being here. And, for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.